A very warm welcome to all of you on this webinar platform. We are going to see here the proceedings and hear, in fact, the proceedings of our one-day international webinar and poster making competition, which we have entitled, we all know that, Impact of COVID-19 on Health and Education Going Digital. Our webinar, as you already know, is supported by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of our college, the IQAC of Mrinalini Dotto Mahavidyapith. And we are really very proud that Pratham West Bengal, which is a wing of Pratham Education Foundation, is our collaborator. Pratham Education Foundation is a renowned NGO dedicated to the cause of promoting education to young people and children across India. We are thankful that they have agreed to collaborate with us. Now, before we go into the inaugural session, I would just, ask all our participants to kindly note a few instructions. First, kindly type your questions, your suggestions on the chat box or on the question answer box. Due to the constraint of time, we will not be able to allow all the questions that are being asked to the speakers. That I don't think it will be possible because of very limited time. So we will select a few questions and we will place it to the speakers during this discussion. The second thing that I would like to mention is, please stay till the end of the webinar, because after the vote of thanks, we have arranged for a photo session. Something that we always enjoyed doing when we used to meet in the auditorium. And now, because it's a new normal way and meeting here on the virtual platform, we are still trying to maintain that tradition. And our technical assistant, who is Dr. Shuman Chakraborty, Faculty Department of Anthropology, he will help us with that. So now let us inaugurate this one-day international webinar. I would request our very respected Honorable Principal Sir, Dr. Apurva Bandyopadhyay, who is going to deliver his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mitali. Now, hello everyone. Most welcome to this one-day international webinar and poster competition for students on impact of COVID-19 on health and education going digital. The webinar has been jointly organized by the Department of Sociology and English in association with the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Mrinalini Dotto Mahavidyapith, West Bengal, in collaboration with Pratham Education Foundation, India. It is a pleasant privilege for me to welcome the prospective speakers of today's webinar that has received a kind of global importance. To be specific, we feel proud to welcome our first speaker, Dr. Rukmini Banerjee, Chief Executive Officer, Pratham. Dr. Banerjee is at present the torch bearer of one of the largest NGO in India that works for underprivileged children. We also enjoy her support in involving our students in their mammoth project to prepare the ASER, that is Annual Status of Education Report of our country. Today, Dr. Banerjee will elaborate on different educational programs initiated by Pratham and its effects in India. It is our great pleasure and honor to welcome Mr. John Baker, Director of Engineering at Kaplan Test Prep, University of Tennessee. Application of emerging technologies has been the passion of Mr. Baker, and today he will let us know how the pandemic has affected educational tech business, what are the measures taken by Kaplan to convert the COVID challenges into opportunities to enrich the social system from a digital point of view. We feel sincerely obliged to welcome Dr. Prasoon Datta, Fellowship Trainee in Addiction Medicine, Nepean Hospital, Sydney, who has enough experience in clinical management of addicted patients and in teaching the junior doctors as well. More interestingly, Dr. Datta maintains a deep interest in supporting the upper mountains community. We would thus learn a lot from Dr. Datta about possible courses of action to overcome some of the COVID-19 challenges like skill education, depression management, and healthcare at a remote location. It is an affectionate moment for us to welcome Dr. Pinaki Banerjee, MD internist, visiting consultant physician, and retired professor of medicine at Ramakrishna Mission Seva Pratishthan, Kolkata. Dr. Banerjee likes to afford the spirit of holistic existence, even when he writes for a leading daily. Today, Dr. Banerjee will speak on mental and physical health consequences of COVID-19 and the role of medical institutions in this regard. I am equally fortunate to welcome nearly 200 learned participants of this webinar, most of whom are the dedicated teachers and students from more than 100 institutes of higher education. And for everyone, I believe it is a matter of grave concern that sudden closure of educational institutions across the globe since second week of March 2020 to contain the spread of COVID-19 has erupted a far-reaching challenge in societal and economic situations. In countries like India, only a handful of young learners have access to the e-learning solutions. Moreover, the disruption in higher education sector, the alarming shootout of unemployment rate, and the associated physical and psychological stress have now thrown severe threats on our health and existence. To rebuild a resilient education system in the present scenario, we probably need seamless integration of technology and abundant availability of open educational resources. Teachers have to be more tech savvy to cope with the forthcoming transformation of pedagogy. Obviously, we need to strengthen blended learning by the use of learning management softwares to keep the students in our proximity. Health sectors have also been severely affected by this pandemic, which has exposed critical shortcomings in healthcare infrastructure, even in countries with advanced medical facilities. When the crisis subsides, countries will have to reprioritize their healthcare agenda, and the future reforms must be centered on the cost, coverage, and quality of healthcare. Digital health, telemedicine, online training for nurses and primary health workers are supposed to improve the preventive healthcare system in the days to come. Today, we sincerely aspire that the eminent speakers of this international webinar will enlighten us over the appropriate breakthroughs, following which we can get rid of the cascading impact of such deadly pandemic. At the end, I remain thankful to the entire team of Pratham, to our dedicated teachers in the Department of Sociology and English, and to the members of our internal quality assurance cell for organizing this important webinar. Finally, I wish to grand success of this webinar and welcome you all once again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, sir, for those words of encouragement, for introducing our speaker already, and for striking in a nutshell the keynote of the webinar. I would now request my joint convener, Anuja Gupta, Srimati Anuja Gupta, who is extremely energetic and enterprising young lady, and I would, she's also the head of the Department of Sociology. I would ask her to introduce the webinar topic to all of you here. Over to Anuja.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gangopadhyay. Am I audible? Thank you. So it has been extremely an energetic moment and a pleasurable moment to organize this webinar with the support of our principal and all our beloved teachers. I'm extremely thankful to each and one of the resource persons here who have taken out some time from their busy schedule and agreed to be a part of our webinar. Uh, while in school in the last few years of the last previous century, the common topic that we would receive for writing during essays was to mention something about how do you visualize the year 2020. So while we spoke about technological advancement and the leaps and changes in life, rarely did we imagine our life to be hampered and harassed by a virus which is invisible and yet so attacking. It is more challenging now in this century. While the more dependent we are on technology, we are also threatened and we uh, move towards darkness because we cannot really deal with this virus. Being an educational part of this educational institution, uh, and being an academician myself, as we try to grapple with the fast changing world, it becomes our responsibility not only to upgrade ourselves to meet the challenging situation, but also to understand the demands, the changing demands of the students. With more than half of the population belonging to the youth, belong to the youth who compose more than half of our population, it really becomes very challenging and demanding to deal with this crisis. Way back in 1970, when the factor of the vast changing society, Alan Toffler had written about the fast changing world where change is faster than time itself, change in the time itself. We are dealing with that. Hence, to bring and to make a comprehensive understanding of the changes in the world, to enable our students to grapple with the psychological factor involved in the changes, and to develop ourselves as well, to evolve ourselves, not just as academicians, as better human beings, but also to have the courage to deal with these challenging times, we thought of organizing this webinar. And what better platform for our students than to give them a scope and opportunity to allow them to make a poster presentation where they could put down their own thought and their understanding about COVID-19. Hence, gone are those days when hand-holding and classroom teachings were the order of the day. Gone are those days where other worries and rushing to the doctor were the part of the day. Gone are those days where meeting in communities, exchanging and having adda was the part of our day. We are now grappling with fear and frustration. In order to have a ray of hope and in order to see some light through the glimpse and not be at one's wit's end, we have hereby come together to have this webinar with the support of all of you. Without further delay, I'm really thankful to Dr. Rukmini Banerjee and Mr. Ranojit Bhattacharya, along with the entire team of Asar and Pratham, for agreeing to be a part of this small effort. It is the first initiative of us to organize this webinar. I'm extremely thankful to all of you. Mrs. Rukmini Banerjee is known all over the world for her contribution in education, and it's extremely privileging to have her over here and to have her views on education. And as she'll be speaking on the challenges and the challenges in the sphere of education in the current world. So over to you, ma'am, Dr. Banerjee. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. I want to extend my big thanks to Professor Apurva Bandyopadhyay, to Mitali, Dr. Mitali, to Smriti Onuja, and to all of you. We work largely in early childhood education and in primary education. And so it is rare for us to be invited to partner with a institution of eminence and of higher education. And so we are very glad to be here. Of course, it would have been even better if we could have been here in person and met all of you. But still, I think that bringing almost 200 people together for a discussion is a wonderful job. How much, Anuja, how much time? So sorry, you're
20. Yes, ma'am. 20 minutes. You can take your time, but if you want to extend, you can.
No.
It's 20 minutes, ma'am, per speaker.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought I would do 4 things. First is that as the lockdown happened in the middle of March, what was the immediate reaction from our side, from Pratham's side? The second would be that looking back, it's been 3 months now. Looking back, I feel this has been a period of incredible and accelerated learning for everybody in the organization. So maybe to just go over what that has been. Third would be that as we look ahead, what are the challenges and the opportunities that we are seeing? And fourth, maybe ending up with what we are formulating as the really high priority tasks to be done. So that's how I thought we could maybe structure the conversation. Like with everybody else in every part of the world, this sudden stopping. I mean, we all know what happens when you're in a bus or a taxi and the driver suddenly brakes. There are various things that happen, including you hit your head against the seat or against the windscreen in front of you, and you are all shaken up. And I think that is exactly what has happened to the whole world. That nobody really has had this kind of an experience before. And on the one hand, as Anuja said, people are fearful, people are uncertain. But on the other hand, also, I find that there's a lot of innovative solutions, innovative things that people are doing. So as Pratham, for those who don't maybe know us that well, we work in many states in India, almost all of the major states. And we have about 8,000 people who are working in some team or the other within Pratham, mostly education, but we also have a vocational skilling program for youth. And, as we began to shut down our operations, I was joking to somebody that I've spent my whole life opening things and sustaining things. It's the first time that I had to actually quickly shut things down. And so like everybody else, I think we were completely unused to what that involves. We travel a lot because much of the work that we do is in the rural areas spread out across states. And therefore, for suddenly a fast-moving train to come to a complete halt, I think took a lot of changing of your behavior and your mindset. My own family, who's not used to having me at home, was really, I think, quite perturbed that day after day I was at home. And not only are you at home, you're at home from morning till night. And I think that's probably a reaction that every one of you has seen as well. But a couple of things happened right away. We, reach out on a daily basis to many children. And the first thing that our teams did was to be concerned, just like we are about our families. They were concerned about the children and the communities in which we were. And so since, Pratham people are used to being in the villages, often you didn't have people's phone numbers or other things because you're always there. And so I think there was a quick scramble to figure out how to reach out, not just to our own team members, which of course we were in contact with, but to the children and to the communities. And we work directly in about 6,000 or 7,000 villages or communities across India. And within those villages, as it turns out, as part of our own program, we do things in the Anganwadi or in the school, but we also have little groups of children's groups in each part of the village. So in each pada or each tola, you will have a small children's group. And we found that actually those groupings were extremely useful to us, because as soon as you contacted one person in the group, you were able to reach the others who are all neighbors. So our first job was to actually establish a communication, sort of a two-way communication channel, where we could reach out to the children through their families and they could reach out back to us. And so our first couple of weeks, we also have a digital part of our program. Our first couple of weeks was to start sending some activities that we could do through first with WhatsApp, with little videos and other things, that rather than thinking about education and learning, we felt it was very important in this time of stress to have some kind of fun activities to do that you could do together with your brothers and sisters, often with the help of your parents. But in doing this, and in reaching out to the children, we obviously found that, you know, WhatsApp requires a smartphone, and there's smartphone penetration. Even if your father has a smartphone, often children don't have access to that phone. So it wasn't anything like an online education that more elite schools are doing. This was literally an activity which comes to you on WhatsApp, and you do it. If I had been better organized, I could have shown you some examples of what these were. So these were all, you know, kind of fun activities. But we realized that WhatsApp would only reach, maybe depending on the state, it could reach at maximum 55–60% of the families of the children that we were working with. And so we quickly had to go back and start thinking of what you can send through SMS messages, which of course have a limit of 167 characters. So how innovative and creative can you be in those number of characters was actually a really creative task. And so through these kinds of two-way communication, sending a message, and if we have, we often started getting back, children would send us back things that they did, they would call, and the calls that were going from our side were calls from people that the kids knew. So, you know, it was easier therefore to connect in this way. At the same time, at a macro level, we could see that governments, we work quite a lot with state governments in education. Governments were also scrambling to see what could be done to connect to government schools. So any digital content that anyone had, we work in many states in India. So we had digital content for primary school children, you know, in 11 languages. So Hindi and English are common, but to be having it in Bangla, in Odia, in Assamese, and so on. And so we found that partnership with or collaboration with other organizations or governments, suddenly a big space opened up because everybody was trying to really reach out and help. And I think that happens in a crisis where normal boundaries and normal regulations are put aside and you begin to reach out. So I would say that during this period, we have learned a lot. We have seen that it's possible in a period of 2 months for a whole organization to completely change the way you operate. We've been reaching out. A colleague of mine put it very well. She said that we are much further away from the places we work and the people we work, but we are much, much closer because you are making such a big effort to connect and be in touch all the time. And I think we see that in our families, we see that in the colleagues, and we see that in where we work. We also saw that if you reached out, particularly to parents, we work with a lot of children whose parents don't have much education. And so normally they don't get involved in their children's learning because they feel that this is beyond me. But if you are able to actually create opportunities to be able to enable such people to react, then you get a very good response. So I would say that across India, at least, whether it is elite parents who now have to be involved in the Zoom calls that their children have to attend with their schools, or the kinds of parents that we work with who were never part of the interaction with the school, but are now feeling that if they don't get involved, then the children will get left behind. We see a huge parent participation across the board. And I think looking ahead, this can only be a plus point, that so far, often, especially uneducated parents felt that my job is to send a child to school and the school will educate my children. Now you see that they can see that because of these conditions, they can do. I want to give you an example of a SMS message, just an example. We sent a message saying that how much water is used in your family for different things. And if you had to measure that water in buckets, how many buckets do you think you used yesterday? And obviously this was put into 167 characters. We got innumerable phone calls back saying, can we measure in mugs? Can we measure in drums? And yesterday we didn't wash clothes because water didn't come. So yesterday's calculation would not be a right calculation. And somehow it was an activity in which parents felt that they were fully entitled to participate because this involved a lot of discussion in the family. Earlier today, we were doing a review of some of these activities and the reactions we got. And one of my colleagues made a very interesting point that the easy activities actually didn't cause much discussion. It was where clarification was needed, or there were some calculations to be made, where the whole family seemed to know. So if you called and instead of being able to speak to the parents, supposing there was an elderly grandfather, the grandfather would say, are you the people who are sending these tough things every day that we have to spend so much time thinking about? So we have learned a lot about actually communication and about interaction and about connection. And I guess the assumption is that if you're in education, you know all these things. But we realized that we were being quite, in a way, blinkered, looking just at the sort of academic activities. And what this situation of being far away has done has opened our eyes to a whole range of things that are extremely helpful to us in helping us think about how children can learn and how to create those conditions. Our vocational skilling program has been completely turned upside down, because we used to train people in residential programs and then place them in the organized sector. And much of our placements, these are for entry-level positions for young people who are coming from really deprived backgrounds. But a large part of the places where we placed them was, for example, hospitality or construction. None of those industries are actually operating right now. And you are also, not willing now, and perhaps not for some months, to come somewhere to a residential place to be, together. And so what our skilling team has done is they've started offering webinars. I attended a webinar done by our plumbing team about how you should learn 5 major things that can go wrong in your house and that you can fix. And I have to say that even though I've been, in our own vocational skilling program, attended many meetings, I had never attended a basic plumbing course 101. And as a result, now we don't need to call plumbers home. I can fix the minor things that are going on in our house. So this is just an example to say that, we still, we are still very much operational. We are just operating in completely different ways. But along with whatever we are able to impart to our children, I think every one of my 8,000 people has learned a lot in the last 3 months. But how do you change to continue to remain relevant, appropriate, and connected? And of course, that's exactly what we should be doing all the time. But I think it often takes a crisis to make you change, the way that you go. If I think about what looking ahead, nobody's stopping me and I'm not looking at time, but I'll just finish in the next few minutes. I think looking ahead, there are obviously many, many concerns, as we all know. But we also see that at least for primary education or for early childhood education, we can see that when schools open or when Anganwadis open, there's going to be a big job to bring enrollment back. I think there's going to be a lot of fear, a lot of worry about, coming together. And so right from now, we are now currently connected to about 11,000 villages. We are starting to do the following. We think there should be one little activity that can happen in every household on children's learning every day. And that can go exactly the way that I've described it. Something going, but also a two-way communication where someone calls every couple of days and has a conversation with the family. As lockdowns seem to, get lighter, we are starting small groups, 4 or 5 children in your immediate community, in our mohallas. We had it before. So just exactly who you play with in the evening, that same set of kids just sitting down for, hour or so and beginning to do a little bit of structured work. And we also feel we are helping with radio programs in several states. And we find that nowadays not very many people have radios. But if we appeal to a panchayat or to the local village community, they are often broadcasting things through loudspeakers. So we feel there also needs to be a little piece where the village, through whatever means, there are villages in Gujarat, for example, where they've painted blackboards in different parts of the village. And every day somebody writes a small paragraph or puts a little problem there, which means that anyone who's walking around can go to it and look at it and work on it. So we think that this home, this neighborhood, this village, and then the institution, which may be the school or the Anganwadi, we need this continuum for the whole year. We need parents to be helping children at home. We need someone in the immediate neighborhood, a dada or a didi or a dadu, whoever is available to just help to facilitate the children. And then we need the village community or the, whoever is the overarching to pay a little bit of attention to this, so that when schools open, all of this can be helpful in bringing kids to school. Or if we have to move into a shift system where only some kids go on a given day, then the other kids can still be organized in this way. So when schools open, or when we are of course worried about kids from children who are from poorer families, because the economic hardship that they are facing today and they will continue to face will be significant. And therefore I think things like the midday meals have to be running well, because that may be the only source of a good meal a day. And again, there I think as a collective you can help a lot. I'm particularly worried about older girls. There's a chance that they may be pulled out to help at home while parents go out to work. So there need to be things done, especially for girls in 7th, 8th, 9th, to make sure, give them an important position in the school life so that their attendance is ensured. And finally, I think there are two more points. A lot of children will face kind of academic learning loss. Our learning, basic learning levels in India are not good, and they're likely to have fallen. And so, we've been urging state governments to say that when kids come back, let's focus on some of the basic foundational skills, basic reading, basic arithmetic, put aside the curriculum for a bit, help kids settle in, help them to reconnect. And finally, I'm very worried about the class of 2020, the children who are going to go to first standard this year. It's a moment that many, many children look forward to. And I think that's true of the children who are going to go to college this year, the children who are going to go to upper primary, because these are very anticipated transitions. And they are greatly at jeopardy because nobody has time to focus on that. And therefore they may get, lost. So while I'll let you worry about the young people who are going to come to college, we feel as Pratham, we should worry about the children who are going to go into the Pratham class in school, and see how you can make that experience for them, when it is possible, to be such a wonderful experience, so that people for many years will remember the class of 2020. And though that class of 2020 will be in 10th standard in 2030. And we have to make sure that they get there safely. And if we are able to do that, I think the rest of the kids will also make it. So I think that, I'm very keen to hear about the health, where I think there's going to be lots of very serious repercussions. But at least in primary education, if everybody gets together and focuses on some of these very basic things, we should be able to help our schools and Anganwadis come back to normal, and perhaps come back, and if we prioritize the right things, come back stronger and better. So that is my hope. And I know you have a lot of people who are listening. I hope across West Bengal, across India, institutions of higher learning, of course, focus on their own students. But anybody who has reached there owes something back in their community to help the class of 2020 to make a good beginning into their educational career. So I'll stop there. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rukmini ma'am, for sharing your own experiences, and especially talking about sharing your concern about the class of 2020. Ma'am, since you'll be leaving early, we know that you're pretty busy and you have a meeting scheduled at 7:30. So ma'am, we will be taking your questions right now. We have got 2 questions. So let us just take questions, ma'am. The first question is from Dr. Shohiri Chaudhary, Faculty, Department of Sociology, Belda College. Ma'am, she wants to know, don't we need to make people understand at micro level how internet or gadgets can be used for education purpose equally, side by side, to one-to-one communication?
Yeah, I think, of course, we need to do this. But we also need to remember that there are many people who still are not directly connected to the internet. And so one of the things that we learned in this time is that we do have a digital component in what we do, but we had been looking we had been looking forward. We had been planning on the use of smartphones, the planning on the use of tablets. But when we really needed to work from remote, we had to go back to old technologies like basic phones, SMS. And in fact, we've seen actually really good responses to radio. Within our own teams, there were very few people who had had any experience of creating radio programs. But right now we have a program with the government of Maharashtra that's running in Maharashtra. All over UP, our radio program is going, and it's really providing the air cover, because how do you get messages down if you don't have internet or you don't have anybody at home who is educated enough to connect you? So I think while we look forward, we also have to look sideways and think about if the point is that I need to reach my kids and I need to reach them continuously and I need to help them progress, then any means that are available to me today should be used, as at the same time thinking about how to transform this into what tomorrow should be.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think Shaili agrees with you. The second question comes from Omlan Gayan, who is Faculty Department of English, Mrinalini Dotto Mahabidapit. He is my departmental colleague. He wants to know, is it possible to form a cordial friendship with anyone while we are learning digitally? So friendship and digital learning, can it go side by side?
I think that as I look into the some coming months and maybe years, I think we should not give up the digital connect. We should certainly work to see how it can be both effective, as well as how can people who are not normally connected to digital means come into this. I was talking to a colleague of mine and I said that everybody is looking at individual devices, which many people have. But we should probably think of also some collective mechanisms. So if there is a two-way possibility of communication, video and otherwise, in every Gram Panchayat office or every ward office, which can be used for health sometime during the day, which can be used for education of different age groups sometime during the day, then those families or those children who are not economically in a position to be able to afford internet or online education don't have to be disadvantaged. And I think that these kinds of inequalities are only going to increase in the short run as our economy and as our livelihoods are affected. And therefore, thinking about how do you take more people along, thinking about how do you reach the last person and the second last person is going to be important. Those who have smartphones and educated parents, I don't worry about them too much, because, I think if I look around, I think every one of us has gotten here, not only because of the school we went to, but because of the support we got at home from people who really wanted us to succeed. But if there are young people who don't have that kind of support at home, then we have to make sure that they don't get further left behind in this period.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. We are really privileged that you are here with us. We will now move on to our second esteemed speaker. I would like to introduce to you Dr. John Baker from the United States. Mr. Baker is the Director of Engineering at Kaplan Test Prep, New York. Kaplan is one of the world's largest and most diverse education providers. Mr. Baker has worked most of his career in software development and runs a professional services organization. He's also a business architect. His specialties include enterprise architecture, portfolio management, wireless, cloud computing, and business analysis. Mr. Baker will today speak on, the title of his paper is Navigating a Pandemic, How an EdTech Company in the Epicenter is Adapting. A hearty welcome to you, Mr. Baker. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for the kind invitation. A while back when I told my wife that I'd been invited to speak at a conference in India, she got really excited and said, "When are we going to go over?" And I had to explain it was a Saturday morning webinar. She had not yet made the transition from the real world to our new virtual reality that we live in. I do have a presentation, and I'll send you a copy so that you can distribute it to the attendees if you like. Let me see if I can share my screen, and there we go. Let's go to this, I think. Navigating a pandemic, and present it. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So again, as was said, I work at a company called Kaplan. We are a educational technology and provide a variety of different services. We're an international company. I did want to kind of touch on three things, basically. I want to set the context. I was very interested in hearing Dr. Banerjee talk about her perspective, and I have a very different one. I live in a world with a bit higher technology footprint as an assumption. I work and live in the United States as opposed to India. So I think one of the things to surface is that what I'm telling you is from my point of view and my perspective, and there are a lot of other different realities that are equally valid and important to understand. I want to talk about what I see as the impact to education of this pandemic, and finally, how Kaplan has been adapting over the last several months to what we are dealing with. So first off, setting the context. This is a map that from the New York Times that shows the number of cases. I think this was a snapshot taken about a week ago. I think I checked this morning, and India, for example, on this database is up to about 370,000 cases at this point. But you'll notice that the United States has been particularly hard hit. For whatever reason, they're still debating exactly why the virus has been so prevalent in the United States, and as opposed to some other countries where it's not quite so bad. But it is a worldwide problem. However, in addition, it's a problem that is particularly, I'm trying to see if I can, let me change this just a second. Oh, we'll go over here. Is prevalent in the metropolitan New York area. And that's important because guess where I live? I am actually pretty much at ground zero at the epicenter of the pandemic sweeping the world at this point. You notice the New York metropolitan area, 386,000 as of last week, actually has as many cases as the country of India at this point. That gives you kind of perspective. So that's where I live. I live in Brooklyn, New York. And it's where our division's headquarters are located. Another kind of impact is, at least in my understanding, and this, you're going to see this sort of throughout the rest of my talk, is I think there are three principal areas that this virus is causing. One, of course, is the health. People get sick. Not everybody gets sick a lot. Some people have to go to the hospital. Some people die. But the health aspect is definitely driving certain things. The only way we've been able to currently really deal with the health side is to lock down, to isolate ourselves from other individuals, to stop having schools where you physically go to the school, or businesses sometimes. And that in turn causes a financial impact. And this tension between the lockdown or separation of people, or people not being able to go to the work, and the financial impact that it's causing is a tension that has caused a desire to reopen, even when it may still be something that is somewhat dangerous to our health. So this sort of triangle of forces, if you like, is something that I'm going to talk about a bit. So what have I seen as the impact to education? I guess it's first off, I wanted to talk a little bit about the impact on my own company and what it is, but then I also want to reflect on the impact to the individual, whether it's a student or an employee, onto schools, whether they're anywhere from a grade school on up through higher education, and businesses. So first off, Kaplan. We are an international business, and in very early, I think it was very early February, began to lock down our businesses in Beijing and in Singapore, but then it eventually got to the US, and in early March, our business basically decided everybody's going to work from home. Now, the good news is that, at least for Kaplan, is that we are a somewhat digital company already, or we were rapidly moving to being a digital-based set of products. So our ability to work from home was a lot easier than, let's say, if it was Kaplan Airlines. And I was supposed to get on an airplane and fly, but nobody wanted to fly, and therefore my business would not survive. So we were able to work from home. But this actually had some interesting consequences. First off, let me talk about facilities. I'm fortunate that I have a home office, and I can isolate myself from the rest of my family and work and actually work from home fairly successfully. Not everybody in the company has that luxury. Some people are working from their kitchen tables. Other people are sitting on couches with noisy children underfoot. It's sometimes a challenge to work from home. Internet access is actually pretty good here where I live. Although I do notice that depending on your service provider, sometimes you'll be in a virtual meeting with your colleagues, and one person's audio or video will constantly be dropping out, and you can't get the work done you'd like to do. Finally, caregiving. Obviously, when we locked down, a lot of our employees with young children were sending them to a daycare facility or having a nanny, which was no longer available. So now, not only you're working from home, but you're working from home and having to take care of children. Now, again, I'm fortunate I guess I'm fortunate. My child has already grown up and left the house, so I don't have that burden. So working from home is not always so easy, but we have managed it. Finally, for the company, there's been a financial impact. People have delayed taking some tests. It's not like we are in absolute financial stress, but there has been a little bit of that. Revenues have been, in some parts of our business, we are severely impacted, like our international English as a second language, where we actually want people to come to a location, often in the UK, and they can't do that because there's no more travel. So those are the two primary things that impacted Kaplan. But again, we were relatively fortunate compared to other companies just because we, as I said, have a digital product portfolio. Its impact on students and employees. And again, I'm going to give this from a kind of a US perspective. People are getting sick. That's one aspect. In the US, in the May, I think it's about 2 to 3% have been infected. So there's a lot more people that could get sick. The lockdown, therefore the lockdown. And it does vary by date and location. Involves potentially virtual schooling from home. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And finally, unemployment. Not only are you potentially not just working from home, but you don't have any work at all because you're unemployed all of a sudden. And that has a widening ripple. That's that financial aspect of this. But if you're unemployed, it's hard to then think about sending one of your children off to a school and pay for school even after the pandemic has passed. Schools, again, right around the time the companies were locking down different campuses in different locations. In New York City, it was fairly quick, although the mayor had wanted to delay the actual shutting down of the school system. That's because our schools in New York City not only offer education, but they're also a place, let's call it a daycare facility. It's for both parents who are working, sending the kids off to school allowed them to go to work. And finally, in our school system, we offer the students free breakfasts and lunches. And this is, again, a part of their, it's a form of support for the less privileged parts of the population. So we shut the schools down, both from higher ed to the lower grades. And these schools went into some form of virtual education almost immediately. Unfortunately, some schools here in the US already have a technology basis that they have been using for a small percentage of their population, and they were able to gear that up. A lot of the schools, though, did not, and they had to go to some ad hoc technologies, Zoom being the very prevalent one that was utilized immediately. But that had there's been some analysis over the last couple, 3 months that using something just like Zoom with a teacher is not as effective as being in the classroom itself, so that there's a concern that we're not educating as efficiently as we could. Some schools have a more formal LMS. Here again in the US, Google Classroom is relatively common, and in higher education, the Canvas LMS is often used. And those got scaled up fairly quickly, both Google Classroom and Canvas, where they could be done. Finally, there is a digital divide, and the ability of a student to be able to access the internet and to have the technology that would support this kind of virtual learning is not always in place. Here's a graph that shows, and this is again US access of internet by income, and since the year 2000, where there was a much wider disparity, it has been converging, but still about 25% of the lower income people just don't have any internet access at all. And this again was a challenge for some of the school districts where those less prosperous families were located. So the impact on companies. Again, I talked about the experience with Kaplan. We were able to quickly shift gears and start working from home, but there are some types of companies where working from home isn't an option. And you're now dealing with the can't work from home, whether you are working in a agribusiness, in the field picking vegetables, whether you are delivering or working in a warehouse for distribution. You have to show up at work, you have to be closer to people than you might be comfortable with, but that's your condition of employment. So the financial impact is another factor. Again, it varies. Kaplan took a small hit financially, but some companies have had to have a salary reduction for employees, and there have been a number of layoffs and even bankruptcies. And in fact, at least the business news is saying that the bankruptcies are just beginning here in the US. And this, of course, has a ripple effect on the ability to participate in forms of education. So by the way, I include companies in here because, again, Kaplan actually does a professional education business in addition to school-based education. So an employee can come and take courses on getting certified as a real estate agent or a financial analyst, things like that. So those are the impacts that I've seen, that we've experienced. So how is Kaplan adapting to this? Now again, we interact as a company with these different constituents, whether they're students, employees, we interact directly with schools, we interact directly with companies. It's a complex web. It's a web of those individuals also obviously interacting with their schools and their companies and getting different kind of either education or not, depending on the circumstances. So what we did very early was to shut down our training facilities. We have a number of physical facilities. About 30% of our revenue is based on face-to-face educational experiences, and 70% is done online. But within a matter of just a few days, we had shut down the physical facilities, offered the people participating a conversion to an online experience, and the majority of those people took that opportunity and began to pick up where they had left off in an online mode. Some people just prefer, I mean, this is the, there's trade-offs, pros and cons for physical versus virtual educational experience. And some people just prefer to sit in the classroom with other people around them, be able to look the teacher in the eye, ask an ad hoc question very quickly. It's a very efficient form of education, tried and true. But in a pandemic, it's just not possible. The other thing we did right away was a lot of the standardized testing that's done in the United States is done at testing facilities where you would go on a, let's say, Saturday morning and spend 2 or 3 or 7 hours taking a particular test, sitting in a seat in front of a piece of paper or a computer, but you'd be around a lot of other people, and that wasn't going to happen for many of the standardized tests, and therefore they got delayed. That was the immediate reaction of the standardized testing market, was to delay the scheduled tests, which in turn meant that the people that were taking some of our products to prepare for those tests were going to run out of time. All of our products have an expiration date, so we extended those. We basically said, we understand your situation. We are going to give you a extra period of time. In fact, and again, I hope to share this document with you guys. If you go to our website, there's a whole bunch of frequently asked questions around the COVID. And in many more words, it explains exactly what I just told you about being able, and again, these are the different types of standardized tests that we support. And you can go to each one of those to get a support. So this is what we've been doing with the individuals. Working with schools. We already have a set of online institutional products. And this is a set of products that not only supports a student experience where they could log on and do educational activities, watching videos, taking quizzes, and so forth, but it also supports an educator's point of view, so they can see a class of students and how well they are doing compared to each other or against some absolute testing standard. And then a portal for administrators who would have to roster students in, assign them to classes, assign teachers to classes, schedule all that activity. So all these 3 dimensions exist in an institutional online product. So basically, as the schools themselves needed to go virtual fairly quickly, if they were using one of our institutional products, there wasn't really a dramatic impact that existed there. They could continue to do that. You just log on from different physical locations. Finally, with the companies themselves, again, our institutional products suite, just like with a school, as the company would go virtual, we were able to support them and allow the continuation of their online educational experience. Also, there's some companies that we work with that are actually then reselling educational services into the marketplace. And I'll give you an example. One company we're working with does assessments of students to see whether they have any disabilities. And there's a whole variety of standardized assessments that are done. And the people that usually do these assessments are teachers in schoolroom situations. And so we were gearing up to offer training to those teachers so they could learn how to do these assessments in a more effective manner. And all of a sudden the pandemic hits, and the company we were working with that offers this assessment portfolio came to us and said, it looks like everything's going to go virtual. What we thought was going to be a small population of where our educator would go to a school, have a classroom of teachers, is no longer going to be possible. Can you gear up and support a much larger audience of people using the product that we're talking about? And of course we said, yes, we can scale very quickly and we can support you. That's an example of a company where their go-to-market is now supported by some of the things that we can offer to help make that happen. Okay. So we talked a little bit about, again, my perspective on this, which is, again, kind of US-centric, educational technology specialist. We talked a little bit about at least what I think the impact of the virus has been to the different constituents in our marketplace, and what we've done over the last several months to both adapt our own company and to deal with these different individuals and organizations. If you want, you can learn a lot more about what I do. www.captest.com. You can go there and look at what we've offered up. And then there's another one, Learn with Adam. At the Adam platforms, actually, I'm a director of engineering on this Adam platform, which is the basis for this technology that I've been talking about. So with that, I think I am done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Becker. This was really an informative presentation, I must say. And especially when in India, all our eyes are fixed on the COVID figures in America. This is really a very, very useful presentation at the same time, because we now get to know what are the challenges that an education provider in America are facing, and how you're trying to grapple with those problems, with those challenges. Thank you once again, sir. I would now, thank you, sir. I would now request Sushma Rai, Faculty, Department of Sociology, to introduce our third eminent speaker from Australia, Dr. Proshun Dotto, who is also a very dear friend of ours. So over to Sushma for introducing Dr. Proshun Dotto.
Thank you so much, Mitali Didi. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Our third very eminent speaker is Dr. Proshun Dotto. His many qualifications are MBBS. Dr. Datta graduated from Kolkata in the year 2000 and went to the UK in the year 2003, where he was member of the Royal College of General Practitioners, MRCGP. He has got 15 years experience of working in the National Health Services in the UK. Dr. Datto subsequently shifted to Australia in 2018 to join the fellowship training program in the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, FRACGP. Here his specialization was in the field of addiction medicine. Currently he is working in Nepean Hospital in Western Sydney. Over to you, Dr. Datta.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and the opportunity to let me participate in this international forum. As I said rightly, I completed my MBBS from NRS Medical College, in fact, in Calcutta in 2000. And then I moved to the UK in 2003 for further training. And subsequently, I moved to Australia in 2018 and joined the fellowship program in addiction medicine, which in simple terms is looking after people who are struggling with drugs and alcohol, which is very topical in the Western countries and in India, and we are going through a pandemic of its own because of the alcohol and the drugs, both in US, Europe, and in Australia as well. I'll try and share my screen as well and see if it works. Sorry, I'm having some difficulty with this. Give me 2 seconds.
Go to share screen.
Yeah, it's just asking me to relog in again into the OneDrive.
Okay, fine. Take your time. No problem.
Please take your time, Proshun.
Oh, sorry, I'm taking too much time, I think. For some reason, it's not working. Give me a second.
Can we help you out in any way from our end?
Let me give another go.
No, Mithaladi is, we have no, you will able to, I think, go to share screen and share your,
Is there any problem from our side?
no, no.
And it's not from your side. Just give me 1 second. No, I'm struggling with this one. Shantanu, I cannot find the right file. Don't know why it's picking up the wrong one. Is there someone who can help me out with this?
That's
Yes,
it.
it's coming.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, let's have a look. No, but it's not the right one. Well, it's almost midnight, so my brain is not working well. I'll give one more go. Otherwise, I'll probably just share the content.
Okay, till the time Dr. Proshun is trying to share his screen, let me pass on an important information, which I think will make all our student participants here in this webinar very, very happy. We will be having a slideshow of a few posters. We received wonderful posters from you, dear students. We were actually overwhelmed to see how wonderfully you could portray the focal theme of the webinar here. So what we have done, we have not only ranked you from 1st to 10th. So there are first 10 rankers that we have got. Along with that, we also have a few, posters that are commendable and worthy of exhibiting. So we will be exhibiting those few posters, and then we will gradually come down from 10 to the first poster. And we will have here our, the panel of judges. When we show the posters, we'll talk about them. And also something else that I would like to mention here, since Mr. Baker has already, delivered his speech, his presentation, he has shown, and Dr. Proshun is trying out to, share his screen. If you have any questions for Mr. Baker, kindly put your questions on the chat box or on the question answer box so that Mr. Baker can also see it. And if he feels like, if he can also, answer you back, or during discussion time, we can take up those questions, but possibly we will not be able to take all the questions due to constraint of time. We'll be taking up 2 questions per speaker. Till then, I would request you to kindly bear a little with us. And I just hope that Proshun is able to kind of fix the problem as early as possible, and so that we can go back to his presentation. Thank you.
I can't find the final presentation, but I'll go with the draft one I had already. I'll start again, and thank you for the opportunity again. So I based my talk on my experience in working in these 2 countries in the UK and Australia. As a response of the COVID-19 crisis, the physical distancing, we're also accessing health in different ways. And we have given different names to these platforms. We calling them telehealth, digital health, virtual health, but my favorite one is virtual care. We are accessing health over the telephone, video calls, online platforms, chats, etc. And in this growing market of platforms, we must make sure that the service we are using is also a secure and stable one, because we also need to maintain patient confidentiality. In the 2 countries in the UK and Australia, the responses have been slightly different. UK with 42,000 deaths now. They are triaging all the calls made by the patients, and only if absolutely necessary to see those patients, they are putting on full personal protective equipment and then consulting the patients face to face. In Australia, we have been very fortunate. We have only had 102 deaths, and we have got a mixed response. Some of us have taken a balanced approach of triaging them and initially, and then to decide if to see those patients face to face or to consult over the phone. Personally, I'm taking this mixed approach, but some of my colleagues have stopped seeing patients face to face altogether. We have to ask this question: is this such a new thing? Probably not. In the UK, about 6 years back, I was involved in a pilot project in primary care, where we gave the patients who suffers from an asthma or COPD problems, and also with hypertension, blood pressure monitors and pulse oximeters, and the nurse matrons and GPs would then follow them up over the phone. And that worked pretty well for some of the patients, and some of the patients it did not work well enough. In Australia, in secondary care, because of the huge geographical area some of the doctors need to cover, especially in mental health, this has been a platform which we have been using for the last many years now. And it is getting more popularity. However, we have been recently forced to use it almost 100% because of the crisis. Now we know that we not only should focus our well-being on the physical health, but also look into the psychological and social well-being as well. As a part of the crisis again, there are various apps which are available and are getting more and more popularity. Some of the physical health apps which are available are to do with your lifestyle changes. People are using an app called Quitline in Australia to help them to quit smoking. There are also different apps to help with nutrition as well, to find out what you should eat and shouldn't eat, and how to maintain the right balance with different nutritious products. In cardiac health, we are using the virtual platform more and more as well, where ECGs can be transmitted over the phone and over other softwares to a tertiary hospital to be interpreted, and if deemed, take necessary action, and very urgently as well. Over the last couple of years, we have had a huge development in diabetes management, where we are putting on a sensor on the skin, so it's really on the top arm, and we can continuously monitor sugar levels, and that has given the management of diabetes a new dimension altogether. Psychological health, there are more and more apps which are being developed and used on mindfulness. We're also using computerized cognitive behavioral therapy to help patients with anxiety and depression. Telephone help is there as well, and that has been the case for many years all over the world, and that's nothing new. Suicide prevention help, the helpline is getting busier and busier, as we know, because of this crisis. We also are using more and more social and networking apps and dating apps as well to keep us sane in this difficult time which we are going through. Now, let's talk about a different digital revolution in health, which may not be well known in India, and that's about online health records. In the UK, it started about 15 years back, where the government aspired to have the whole health records of all the population of UK on a platform called Spine. It's a cloud-based program, and the idea was that this could be availed anywhere, from anywhere in the world. It worked well with some initial hitches, but with the last 2-3 years, it's working very seamlessly. And how is it useful? I'll give an example. So I'll say in the context of India. So if you're traveling to, say, I don't know, Lucknow, and you present to a local hospital, but not in a position to tell about your medical history, your allergies, and the medications you're regularly taking. Now, if a senior doctor or a nurse can access your online health records, that will be quite easily available for them, which can be life-saving for the patients. There are anxieties and apprehension about this way of accessing health records as well. When in Australia, about 3 years back, a similar kind of project was undertaken called My Health Records. There were initial worries about the police, the insurance companies, the courts accessing the health records of the patients without much trouble, and that would be a breach of confidentiality. Since then, the laws have changed, and no one can access the health records of the patients without a court order. Patients have the access to their medical records as well. Again, they're cloud-based and they are password protected. And this way, it gives a transparency and trust between the doctors and the patients. They can see what the doctors have written about them, and they sometimes can challenge about the accuracy of the record keeping as well. This way, we can empower the patients and they can take more responsibility about their own health. In the UK, about 5 years back, we started doing electronic prescribing. What that means is that once you go to your doctor, the doctor prescribes a medication, which then goes to a nominated pharmacy as an electronic token. This way, it is much safer because we can have an electronic trail of all the medications that have been prescribed. And it's a much more efficient way when you're auditing them as well. As I mentioned earlier, not in the physical health, there is an impact on COVID-19 on our psychological health as well. Now, there's been a recent pilot study in the US where 1,079 respondents reported that 1 in 3 were finding disruptions in their accessing treatment or the recovery support services. This is in context with drugs and alcohol. And 14% said they were unable to receive their needed service. And nationwide, 4% of the respondents report an overdose has occurred since the pandemic began. So this is a pandemic within the pandemic, if you can call it. So we have to be really careful about our mental well-being as well. Next, I'll come to medical education and how it has affected medical education. I am a clinical tutor for University of Sydney, and about 6 weeks back, we were told that we have to go 100% virtual. And it was a tough task to teach them about Parkinson's disease, which is a movement disorder, over Zoom, and that needed a lot of creativity. Now, it is our duty as health professionals to train our next generation of doctors to the highest level. And we have to do that with utmost honesty, and it takes a lot of hard work as well. Fortunately, in Australia, we are going back to the normal platform of teaching them with physical contact with patients as well. But I suppose this has taught us that life can be so difficult when we are not that prepared. Though we have been using webinars and video tutorials and other forms of virtual platform in medical education as well, to go 100% virtual in a forced manner was really difficult. We do have many opportunities to use virtual platform to deliver healthcare. But at the same time, we have to think about those classes of people who may not be fortunate enough to have the knowledge or the skills to avail this virtual care. We're talking about people who are not that IT literate. We're talking about the elderly people who may not have access to smartphones and laptops and other ways of accessing virtual healthcare. We're talking about the homeless people. We're talking about the intellectually challenged people as well. So we need to think about all these people and how we can develop our services which can cater to the needs of all the people we look after. So in the end, I would like to say that love it or loathe it, with a spelling mistake of loathe, virtual care will be the new normal in the post-COVID-19 era. And as health professionals, it is our duty to make it as inclusive as we can for whatever population we are catering for in our professional lives. We have to upskill ourselves because this is new to us as well, to be able to offer same standard of care. At the end of the day, medico-legally, we share the same responsibility and accountability to patients. Either we are offering them care face-to-face or over any virtual platform. Thank you once again. That's my email and WhatsApp number. And if you have any questions, you can always contact me by them. Thank you once again.
Yes, Pitalidi.
Yes. Thank you so much, Proshun. I can really understand what it is to keep awake almost at 1 a.m. at night. And that is why I'm sure something went wrong with the screen sharing, of your presentation. But anyway, thank you once again, because I think you really spoke about the practical problems that the doctors and the patients and the doctors as students are facing in this post-COVID scenario. Since I have been told by Proshun that it is pretty late and that he might want to leave, though we would like him to stay back as long as he's not too sleepy. But in case you want to leave, Proshun, there is a question from one of our participants. He's Sri Debanjan Mitro, again my departmental colleague. He wants to know, how can we empower patients in India under the current situation, as the doctor-patient ratio is in a problematic shape in our own country? So can you please enlighten him on this?
It's difficult for me to say, not being a practitioner in India, but I can suppose I can see that the medical records have gone electronic in the corporate hospitals for sure. And with the IT sector developing by each minute, every minute, I'm sure there'll be some common software which can be cloud-based and available and has to be secured as well. Because in the Western world, we are very much aware of the patient confidentiality. So we have to have secure platforms where you can share the records as well. For practical purposes, if you can carry those records in a very easy form, like on a USB stick, passport protected, and carry them along with you wherever you travel, that may save your life if you are not in a position to tell about your medical history or about your medications. But with time, I'm sure in India as well, there'll be cloud-based medical records sharing platform as well.
Thank you once again, Dr. Proshun Dotto. We will now move on to the fourth and the final esteemed speaker of the day. I shall request Dr. Srimoy Gupta, Faculty, Department of Sociology, to introduce our fourth and final esteemed speaker, Dr. Pinaki Banerjee. Over to Srimoy.
Thank you, Mitalidi. Am I audible to everybody? Okay. Our next speaker is Dr. Pinaki Banerjee. He is a retired professor of medicine and visiting consultant, Ramakrishna Mission Seva Pratishthan, Kolkata. He will be speaking on the mental and physical health consequences of COVID-19 and the role of medical institution in this regard. Over to Mr. Banerjee.
Dr. Banerjee has to unmute himself.
Yes, definitely. Dr. Banerjee has to unmute.
Now, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Please.
You are audible clearly.
Yes.
At the very onset, I must thank Professor Apurva Kumar Bandyopadhyay, Principal Minerali Datta, the Mahavidyapit, the teachers and students of that institution, and the organizers of this webinar. They have honored me for allowing me to speak before this learned audience. Now, some incidents do occur in the human history which divides the history into two parts, before it and after it. Like World War II. World became never the same after World War II. The before and after is clearly different. I'm afraid this corona is going to do the same. The only difference is in World War II, the fight was between two groups of nations, Axis and the alleys. But in fight with the coronavirus, on one side, there's invisible nanoparticles of RNA. Nano means 1/1,000,000th of a millimeter. And the other side, the whole world, the whole human race. Such is the battle against this invisible enemy. The thing is, before coming to the fallout of its attack on the health front, we must have a little knowledge about the enemy itself. The virus is not a living being, nor it is a non-living being. It is in the twilight zone. It is active. It can multiply itself whenever it gets an entry inside a living cell, otherwise not. It is a non-living, but so lethal. Corona is the name given to its shape with knobby projections around its body. It looks like a corona. That's why it is corona. Corona is the name of a large group of viruses. This particular coronavirus, which is now running havoc in the whole world, is actually a zoonotic virus. It thrived in animals, particularly wild animals, long since. It is our lust and greed. We have invited them into our body and caused metamorphosis, that is mutation, to a lethal form, to a highly active pathogenic form. It's our fault. It is the human fault. It started culling civet cats, started culling bats, it started culling the pangolins. Then this virus entered our body and got transferred. This is a recorded version. There are so many other versions. I am not going into controversy. Even then, from where it started, they didn't take the lesson. They have started the wet market yet again. So this is the situation. There is no end to the lust and greed of ours. This particular virus strain, which is now wrecking the world, is a novel, that means new coronavirus identified in 2019. In short, that's called COVID-19. All these are very much well known to you, which is just a preamble. This virus is a respiratory virus. It attacks the respiratory system first. It can cause anything from nothing, that is totally asymptomatic, to fatal event with multi-organ failure, with widespread blood coagulation disorders. Anything may happen. The outcome is only partly predictable. The obese people, diabetics, the senior citizens, the cancer patients, the renal failure patients, the people who are on different kinds of immunosuppressives, they are the easy prey and the fatality rate is much higher. On the contrary, the younger people, they are more resistant. Either they remain asymptomatic or can fight it out. They recover quickly. Now, before we are panicked, really, to be very frank, we are panicked with corona. But before getting panicked, we need to know a few data. The SARS and the MERS virus, they were less contagious but much more lethal. In SARS, the mortality rate was around 10%. With MERS, there's Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. They are still active and rampant, but being less contagious, they are contained. The mortality ratio is something between 15 to 25%. In contrast, actually, I'll be focusing on the Indian scenario and that too in the ground level. In contrast, in India, the fatality, the ratio is around a little over 3%. I'm just quoting a figure. Today, the total positive COVID-19 positive figures are 3,80,532 and death is 12,573. That is a little over 3%. But this percentage again is just the tip of the iceberg because a large number of asymptomatic patients are lurking around and our testing facilities are very limited. Our total health infrastructure is meager, paltry, and insufficient. If we could, but death cannot be concealed. The figures of death are there, but the percentage of the number of positivity may be much, much higher if we can extrapolate it. In different studies, it is from 28 to 68%. This asymptomatic variety. If we can extrapolate this curve, it could be anywhere around 1%. So you need not panic, but it is also not a point of complacency because we may boast, we may feel complacent that our treatment is so nice that we have constrained our death rate to such a low level. It's not that. There are certain factors operative in India. At least one is certain and two are hypothetical. One that is certain is below 50 population is very high. Younger people, percentage of population occupied by the younger age group is quite high. Naturally, mortality is low there. Second and third is hypothetical. The second one is in our Indian environment, the environment is so much polluted with biological pollutants. I mean, by the different virus, different bacteria, different parasites. Our whole immune system is possibly geared up to the maximum, boosted, bolstered. Naturally, it is a general hyperimmune state which might have a role in warding off the limited infections sometimes. Could be, but this is hypothetical, it's not yet proved yet. And secondly, the extreme incidence of tuberculosis, either healed patients or latent infections or the in younger generation universal BCG vaccination. It might have played a role. That too is conjectural. The research is going on. There is some data is coming up, but we are yet to be sure what we can. If that be so, then the BCG vaccination may take a place in prevention of the disease, but we are far from sure. Now, a few, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Now, few issues which are not so, actually, I should say unsavory issues. In the first 4 months of 2020, in fact, in the first 18 weeks, in India alone, incidence of suicides, I have not yet come to the mental health issue. I'll be coming to that later on. Only suicides were more than 24,000. On different kinds of street accidents, in spite of lockdown, was about 30,000. Death from infantile diarrhea was more than 1 lakh. Death from tuberculosis was a whooping 54,000. And maternal mortality, antenatal and perinatal, it's difficult to get a proper figure, but it is very high because till now there are many home deliveries. But these were all preventable deaths. In this first 18 weeks, that is up to the second week of May 2020, the death from corona was more or less 4,000 or little less. So should you consider there is no reason to panic with the corona? There are critics, there are people who say so, but I am not with them. I would say it is quite necessary to be concerned, if not panicked, because the suddenness of this viral attack the unpredictability and the lack of knowledge regarding the definite nature, the very particulars about this virus, and yet to come up with a clear and definite protocol of treatment and its financial burden. So it is certainly wreaking a havoc everywhere, including India. I should say in India mostly because the social security system is not very strong here. Now come to this point of lockdown. Lockdown was implemented with much fanfare, with beating of utensils and lighting of lamps. Nice. But the thing is, had lockdown being very effective, this steep rise in the incidence of corona positivity, does it indicate that we have been very successful with the lockdown? It doesn't appear to be so, because the fault lies with both the implementers and the observers. The implementers were not very strict, and the observers, that is, we people, were not very aware of the total. There was much of lack of awareness from our part. I can give you a little example. Only 2 days back, I was passing through a very congested locality in the east central Calcutta for a stretch of about 1 kilometer. I saw most of the people, their faces uncovered, there's no mask. I started counting. There was hardly, only, believe it, only 12 people with masks, and that too wrongly worn. And social distancing of 6 feet. Now forget it, 3 feet, it's a dream. Everyone is hugging with everyone, jostling and rustling. It's going on. So this is our awareness. Naturally, the locking down is poorly observed from both sides, implementers and the observers. Now, this pandemic these are very unsavory points. The pandemic has bared open our inefficiency, insufficiency, and mismanagement of our health system. This is regrettable for one other reason. The different health agencies, including WHO, gave warning since the month of December about this oncoming epidemic, rather pandemic. But we are possibly busy elsewhere, so we didn't pay much heed to it. We thought that this is a problem either of the West or of the Chinese. It won't happen, it will just bypass us. When it jumped upon us, we became alert suddenly, started to take some measures, yet unprepared with PPE and everything, with the hospital setup and everything. So now social media came up with weird ideas that the oncoming summer will destroy the virus. Some said drinking frequent hot tea will kill the virus. Some said some kind of arsenic will cure it, and this and that. Next point, literacy in India is much improved in the last 2 decades. It is, say, from 70 to 90, 95% in different states. In Kerala, it is more than 95%. But yet, it didn't give rise to expected awareness. Literacy and awareness, they didn't run parallel. In fact, even the affluents, those who can afford, they too is not at all concerned about this social distancing, nor frequent hand washing, or the use of sanitizers, nothing. I've seen in very close relatives, my friends, even in my colleagues, the physician colleagues, the awareness is very poor. The same thing happened not now, during the Spanish flu epidemic of 2017-18. There, the people of America, the USA, they gathered in different places, in different squares. They lodged protest against the mandatory use of masks, and they tore it upon. The result was a disaster. So it happens. This is one point. On the other end of the spectrum, we must consider the slum areas where in 100 square foot room, 7, 8 people stay. The social distancing is the object of heaven. For one tap point or one tubal point, at least 300-400 people, they get water. Frequent hand washing, it's a cruel joke. Cash-strapped people, mostly daily wage earners, their earning has stopped and they will afford some money for hand sanitizers or rice. This is a big question. So before implementing those the lockdown rules, we never thought of the ground reality. It's our fault. Now, there are certain great impacts on our health system. I have already pointed out the inadequacy and the inefficacies. Now, lack of proper protection facilities with healthcare personnel, that is a great thing. When the full-scale war is lodged in, the lack of proper healthcare facilities with nursing staff, with hospital, with service staff, with the doctors, we're very much lacking. This is one thing. And regarding the treatment protocol, we have not yet, not only people of India, but globally, we have not yet come to an universal protocol because the research is going on. Today it is seen this drug will be effective most, the next day it is seen that it's not that effective, something else will be more effective. So a full-scale, standardized, universal protocol is yet to come. So naturally, the results of treatment may not be uniform. And another thing, it's very sorry to say, in this part of the world, the people have become so scared at times, they heckle, they attack, they harass the people, the healthcare personnel in fear. But I think with increasing awareness, with increasing campaign, this thing will pass off. Our health resources are limited. I've already told, both in the private and the public sector. And it is all bursting to seams with COVID patients. Now what happens with the non-COVID patients? They come up with emergencies like acute gastroenteritis, acute GI bleeding, acute myocardial infarction, that means a heart attack, strokes. Where do they go? Fractures, acute appendicitis, acute cholecystitis. They move from hospital to hospital. They don't get a bed, and ultimately they find solace in death. This is the very unfortunate part. And the last one in this chapter is the private practitioners. The small private, this is peculiar to India. In lanes and by-lanes, there are small private practitioners sitting in small clinics. They're mostly family doctors. They attend small illnesses and they screen cases, send them to hospital, or they ask them to stay at house for a day or two. They have suddenly disappeared for fear because they too have family. Many of them are aged, many of them are diabetic. They are scared. What do I land when I get corona infection? In that fear, they have withdrawn from private practice. So throwing the whole population from newborn to nonagenarian at the hand of mercy of God. Now comes the ultimate billion-dollar question. What is the way out? We shall have to accept a few facts. We have to live with it. We shall have to live with this virus. This virus is going to stay. Unless something divine happens, I'll talk to that, how divinity can help us. Anyway, it is going to stay like dengue, like measles, like chickenpox, and like AIDS, and they're going to stay. Then what's the difference? The difference is We know about dengue, we know about measles, chickenpox, even we know about AIDS. We have either we have developed vaccine or we have known the disease, so we have framed a protocol of treatment. We know how to prevent it, but everything is unknown with COVID. We are still in almost a crawling stage. This unknown enemy, like the legendary Meghnad of Ramayana, it's lurking anywhere. It may attack from anywhere. We do not know. This is a very unfortunate situation. We may pray for a vaccine. We are working hard. The whole world is working hard for a vaccine. But there is one practical difficulty with the vaccine. It will, actually, even if it comes, it will come very late, because this is a rapidly mutant virus. We are yet to find a vaccine for HIV virus for this rapid mutation. And so also with this coronavirus. The vaccine, if it comes, may not be as effective as in measles, maybe may not be as effective as in smallpox or polio. But even if it comes, it will come late with many shortfalls. And lastly, that great wishful thinking. This virus was a zoonotic virus. It became pathogenic by a freak of nature. If it mutates again to a non-pathogenic form, that is the best dream we can dream. That much. In the meantime, we may take a few definitive tests. This lockdown, this restricted the business, financial, academic, all kinds of restricted activities cannot go for all time. The economy, at least in our country, is broken. If it continues, it will be crushed. So this cannot go on. We'll have to come to work with all the precautions. 4. One is mask, the other is distancing, MDS is sanitizing, and last is awareness. MDSA, mask, distancing, sanitizing, and awareness. These are the 4 things that will keep you safe to some extent. Again, some extent. This is no guarantee. Now, regarding the treatment, we'll have to make it 3-tier arrangement. First, identify cases. Identify infected cases. For that, you'll have to increase the testing facilities, and you'll have to invent rapid testing facilities to identify maximum number of infected people. Arrange for their quarantine. For this quarantine, you'll have to select the schools or the isolate a school or colleges or big buildings in each block, each panchayat, each mohalla, each para. You earmark a big building, house them, give them a proper facility, hostel facility at least, proper fooding, eating, and isolate from the rest of society. Observe them. Some of them will definitely go on to developing minor symptoms like cough, cold, little fever. Start treating them in a different block of the same building by the local doctor with proper PPE and proper remuneration. This is very harsh to hear, but unless you give proper remuneration, it's very difficult to recruit personnel. This is some of them again that will develop serious symptoms, shift them to hospital from rural upward, the rural, subdivisional, district, and referral hospital, medical colleges, and referral hospitals, private as well as state hospitals. But here you will have to keep the emergency facilities, including this, the ventilation and others ready. Here will come again a very precious question. The ventilators will be provided. They can be made, they can be bought, They can be taken as aid from foreign countries, very nice. But who to operate? Do we have that much number of technologies to operate such machines? There lies a big question again. But here we shall have to gear up. We'll have to train up people from now onwards on a war footing. This is a place where there is a gap between our desire and attempt. Our trying and desire. This gap has to be bridged. This is a weak point. At least a BiPAP machine. BiPAP means some kind of forced inhalation by a machine. Ventilation is totally artificial. BiPAP is partly artificial, partly mechanical, and partly can be arranged. And the last part in this physical illness, the physical fallout, is the social rehabilitation. It sounds queer, but even now, even in my locality, the people are there who have come out to be negative for COVID. But people go along the street and look at the building. Hey, here were two COVID positive people. Keep off the road, like this. It is sometimes like medieval leprosy attitude, medieval attitude during leprosy. It will overcome. It can be overcome by constant campaigning, education, and awareness programs. Now, we are in the last leg. There's COVID and psychology. First of all, I must admit and confess I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm far from it. Yet I have many psychiatrist friends, and I have seen the psychological effects of COVID in people coming close to me. I'll give you some hard facts. First of all, on June 17, a news was there in all newspapers. The 7 suicides occurred in Kolkata alone. 7 suicides occurred, all by hanging. Leaving no suicide note, they're all same type of hanging. And age was from 10 to 70. We do not know the cause. We cannot ascribe it to COVID or the uncertainty due to COVID, but it is a point. In a day, same type of suicide of 7 people in a city is not very common. Second, I can cite a figure of 2018. It is just published. It is by the National Bureau of Crime Records. In 2018, there were 12,936 suicides for job-related issues. There were 10,349 suicides by peasants due to fall in price of commodities or inability to pay off loans or like that. This was the figure of 2018, when the world was different, when it was a so-called normal situation. We have not yet got the figures of 2020. I don't know what has happened. The figures of lockdown are yet to appear. One other thing, we shudder. We simply shuddered when you know about this. Millions of daily wage earners, migrant laborers, they walked and walked and walked to death. Millions of them, and they walked hundreds of kilometers, almost barefoot, with their children clinging to their neck or to their shoulders. This is an unthinkable situation. This exodus was not even imagined by the writer of the Old Testament. And the most unfortunate part is these hapless people had no Moses to lead. They were leading from one's insecurity to the other, ultimately in the lapse of death, many of them. And the most regrettable part is the affluent people, the elite, had questionable sensitivity towards these people. I put this word questionable. Let's say it better on this issue. Now, At the personal level, regarding the psychiatric point, what I observe a few things. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, it is on rise. This such a latent trait is there in many families with many people, but this constant advice, wash hands, wash hands, sanitize, don't go outside, rinse your clothes, wash your hairs, like this, it's making them almost crazy. I don't say that this should not be emphasized, these sanitary measures, but these people are vulnerable. Even I have seen the vegetables bought from market, they are being washed with bucket loads of water, including the bucket itself. Knowing fully that these are going to be boiled, these are going to be cooked, but yet they are washing. There is a Bengali synonym for it, but Mr. Baker may not be knowing it. This is called Shuchi Bayu. Bayu means some whims, weird thoughts. Shuchi means sanctity and obsession with sanctity. That is an exact synonym of OCD. Second is paranoia. The paranoia, an exaggerated feeling, something unclean, something dirty, something is lurking anywhere, and someone is ridiculing me regarding my obsession with the cleanliness. Third is very important, worsening of interpersonal relations between husband and wife, between parents and children, between siblings, everywhere. The worsening of interpersonal relations because of lack of space. Most of the families either in a 2 BHK or 3 BHK apartment. The little space physically and mentally, they are encroaching into the mental space. They're gnawing into it. They're just intruding. They're attacking this space. Everyone is thinking, he's not understanding my point. And over this is added the monetary constraints, the income. The monetary income is downward. What will happen the next day? The loss of sleep. I'll be coming to this point of uncertainty. Loss of sleep. This knowing thought, knowing uncertainty. Now regarding everything, health, service, this monetary, this affairs, everywhere, job security, everywhere, it's totally uncertain. The whole scenario of which as I had been just describing, all the result of a most unkind, dark uncertainty. But the greatest victims of this psychological fallout are the smallest people, that's children. Their world has shrunken. The school is gone. Playground is gone. Friends almost gone. Only a few telephonic talks. Parents, they're quarreling. Everywhere, everywhere. There is nothing green anywhere. It is all a lusterless gray. It's a very unfortunate situation. The education is digital. Okay, fine, digital, but how much? How much? There's what percentage of children have got access to this digital education? Firstly. Secondly, in digital education, where is that personal touch? Where is that kind hand of the man? Nothing. At most a smile. That to everyone, not for me alone. Is it, Mr. Baker? Am I right? Not for me alone. I've done something good. There's no appreciation specific, just a word. It leaves this small fellow's life barren, dry. This is the most unfortunate situation. It makes it lonely, selfish, because he's closed in a blind box. One data more. There is one helpline, BMC Empower. It received 45,000 calls since April. This data published on TOI, Times of India, on 18th of June. 52% were on anxiety issues. 22% for feeling isolated and maladjustment, 11% for depression, and 5% for sleep-related problems. Now, any way out, I can suggest, but this is all upon the affected individuals. They may get counseling on telephone. Anti-anxiety, antidepressant drugs may be effective to some extent, but everyone should understand and appreciate others' difficulties. It is easy to say, but very difficult to do. Talk to your friends, your relatives, your spouse, your children. Talk, talk, and talk. Then remember, happy days. Live through your album of photos, or good, or clip through the album in your digital camera. Listen to music, write something, cook something new, and make something innovative to surprise others. Avoiding criticizing and tit for tat policies in family. Be calm, be dignified. Don't use harsh words. In our society, we must remember women bear the brunt of this discord, this social and psychological pressure. But again, I'll end with something positive. Every dark cloud has a silvery edge. So also has COVID-19. A bit surprising, but it has. In the physical front, COVID has taught us the importance of personal hygiene. It has made us cautious before hugging, before kissing, before sharing ice cream with a little known person. It has taught us. We are cautious about that. Though we don't have any hard data right at this moment, within the first 6 months of the year, what I gather from my own experience, from my hospital experience, from my colleagues, the other contagious diseases like sore throat, like flu, like enteric fever, gastrointestinal infections, like conjunctivitis, they are occurring much less frequently. The data will come up later. This is my personal experience. I cannot claim with the hard data. And we all appreciate a change in the climate, with clearer air, with a bluer sky, with a cleaner road, and it previously unheard tweets of unknown birds at your windows. We have heard. Our children now require less anti-allergics and less bronchodilators. That is the positive part, though it far outweighed by the negatives. Yet there is one. On the psychological front, yes, there too, a little positive. A child with working parents didn't get the care of the either, and now they get the care of both. This is unknown and unknown experience to him. Get cared after by both the parents. We have got the negative points of a child in a confined family. There are positive points too. Second, this is very important. We are all adults. I've heard from many of my gynecologist friends that the infertile couples have spent lakhs over the treatment of infertility over years, but many of them got their desired outcome within these 3 months because they could know each other closely. This also a positive effect. I don't know whether they will keep the name of the child Corona or COVID. Anyway, that is the thing. Now, every dark tunnel ends in daylight, bright daylight, provided we keep on going. If you are stagnant in the tunnel, we'll be never seeing the daylight. We'll have to keep going. We should remember the quote of Sri Aurobindo. He was a saint of our country. He was a great freedom fighter. He ultimately, this is for Dr. Baker, and switched on to spirituality. He said a simple thing. The night is darkest before the dawn. Every time I utter this word, I get shivered within. The night is darkest before the dawn. So don't get disheartened by this dark night. There is one word in Upanishad, you must have heard of Upanishads. Upanishad is the ultimate of the Vedas. There is one word, charibit, forward, forward, and forward. We are looking forward, moving forward, thinking forward, and certainly we'll be successful. Namaskar. Thank you all for this patient overtime hearing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Banerjee. I mean, we all here are overwhelmed, I believe, because it seemed to us that you were such a passionate doctor, as if we have been to your chamber and you are kind of telling us about the impact of COVID-19 on the patients. Such a very passionate, conversational deliberation. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much for your compliment.
Thank you, sir. We will quickly go to a round of question answer session, very, very quick. I will first turn to Mr. John Baker. Sir, there is a question for you.
Yes.
Yes, the question is, with India grappling with online education, how classes from home can be harnessed as an educational entrepreneurship in India? Should I repeat myself?
No, I think I understand. I think one of the challenges, if I understand the situation in India correctly, is the infrastructure, the lack of access. And that really is a matter of funding, either by agencies or the government, or the individual families themselves becoming wealthy enough to afford putting in place the kind of internet connectivity that'll enable some of these capabilities. Now, once that occurs, in the US we call it chicken and egg problem, is once the infrastructure is in place, then entrepreneurs will have a platform to do very innovative technologies. I was actually encouraged by the first speaker, the other Dr. Banerjee, who said that using the lower technology, SMS, voice calls, they're still able to get to people. So I've heard of some entrepreneurs who, instead of aspiring to extremely high tech, go the other route and come up with new creative ways of using existing technologies to accomplish the goals. So that's something to also consider in a situation like yours.
Thank you so much, sir. We here have a question for Dr. Prashun Dotto. This is from Dr. Arinda Mukherjee, Department of Botany, our own college, Mrinalini Dotto Mahavidyapith. Dr. Mukherjee wants to know whether the asymptomatic COVID-19 patient has same mortality risk as a symptomatic patient. Prashun, if you would kindly answer.
Sure. So far, the evidence is not showing that the asymptomatic patients are dying more than the symptomatic patients. A point to be noted that the deaths are usually happening in the patients who have got pre-existing conditions, either elderly or they have got a chronic disease like diabetes, asthma, COPD, or other underlying illnesses. So we are fortunate that way. So in short, no. Just one comment on Dr. Banerjee's presentation. So we have already got some data in Australia. We are in the flu season now in Southern Hemisphere, and we have seen a 99% reduction in the influenza cases compared to 2019, and that is all due to the personal hygiene we are maintaining.
So we couldn't hear you.
Unmute, please unmute.
Yes. There is another question. Is both for Dr. Proshun Dotto as well as for Dr. Pinaki Banerjee. Each of them answer this. This question is again from Dr. Arindam Mukherjee. He says, he's asking, is there any correlation between psychological depression and COVID-19 susceptibility? Dr. Proshun can answer, and then Dr. Banerjee.
I guess, yes. Depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions tend to be higher in the lower socioeconomic area and people who are in the lower rungs of the society. And those are the people who will be crowding in general as well in terms of their living conditions. And again, there is a higher proportion of chronic diseases in those population as well. So indirectly, yes, I think they are more susceptible to get infected with COVID-19, especially in highly populated areas.
I support Dr. Datta's statement. Actually so. Isolated depression per se, it makes a person susceptible. There is no such definite data. But the thing is, a depressed person, not taking care of himself, not abiding by the rules of the sanitization, this is quite frequent. And naturally, he makes him a very much susceptible to the infection by the coronavirus. That's very important. He just forgets to put on the mask when he gets out. This is quite possible. It makes him susceptible. There's no doubt. It's not a direct, a linear relation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pinaki Banerjee. So there is another question for you, and this is from Doel Chatterjee. She wants to know, how can we protect ourselves from being infected once lockdown gets over, given the population, poor infrastructure, and lack of awareness, especially among the youths in India?
Again, that unsavory issues of MDSA. This is the only way out. Mask, sanitization, distancing, and awareness. Mask, sanitization, you cannot compel a person. Firstly, he has to become aware that this is a dangerous illness. Somehow, I have seen that it is ingrained in the brains of young people that they won't get easily infected. It's not that. Incidence is low. That doesn't mean that they're immune. You'll have to tell again. Sometimes we'll be using harsh word to your children. I know this is the children. Now this is a problem in my family also. I cannot compel them. I simply poke them, going on poking. In this way, you'll have to make it a habit. Put on the mask. Whenever you go out, whenever you talk to a stranger, put on the mask. Sanitize the arm. Keep off the person, and if he has not put a mask, or if he appears that he's not keeping the distance, ask him to keep off, be a little farther. This is the only way out. There is no drug definitely proved that this will protect you. No amount of vitamin C, multivitamins, no amount of drinking hot coffees. There is one thing, hydroxychloroquine, there was an issue, but yet it is to be definitely proved. Definitely proved. There is some issue. We are not sure.
Okay.
Can I add a comment if I may?
Sorry?
Yes, Prashant, please go ahead.
Just wanted to add that as Dr. Banerjee mentioned, there's no other way of preventing this. And second wave is a reality. To give an example, we were going through the third phase of relaxation in Australia. And as of today, because of the mass protests which were arranged because of the events in US, a lot of people have now contracted coronavirus after having a good phase of no active cases at all in the state of Victoria. And as of today, Victoria is going back to the lockdown phase. So that will happen in any country where they're not abiding by these rules. So that's a reality, and we don't have any other way out. On hydroxychloroquine, it was a flawed study, so there is no established evidence, and the risk of using hydroxychloroquine outweighs the benefits in these cases. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, I think, should go to all the three esteemed speakers who are here. This question actually comes from Dr. Dilip Kumar Mondol, his Department of Education, again of our college, Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapith. He wants to know, is it possible for us to go for face-to-face teaching learning in school and colleges again? I think all the speakers can answer to this question. Quite a tricky question, because that answer will, I'm sure, determine our fate in Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapith, and will put some pressure on our principal, sir, as not to kind of take us back to the schools, to the college. So anyway, to Mr. Baker would like to answer first.
That one of the speakers mentioned that like World War II, the pandemic is a situation where you have a sort of a massive transformation. There was before and after, and I think this is what we're talking about with education is going to be one of those after phases. There may be some periods of time where schools try to reestablish this face-to-face with social distancing, but I think that the digital transformation is inevitable, meaning that once the people have gotten used to the idea, and the technology will only get better, that we're going to see schools with more and more of a digital footprint. How that ultimately transforms, I'm not sure. But I just know that we've gotten past a certain sort of major point of inflection and are going to be doing something very different, even after the vaccine comes out. This virus will be with us, and we'll have to deal with large groups of people and the risks we would take. So that I think we're going to see a digital future.
Okay, so Dr. Pinaki Banerjee, will you first answer?
Yes, I fully agree with Dr. Baker. The arrangement will be different. That means there may be two shifts. These are already in discussion. Already in discussion in academic circles. There may be two shifts in every institution. There may be the alternate attendance. Let's say there in a class there are 30 students, 15 will be attending on odd days and 15 on the even days, maintaining the social distancing and everything. In that way, it may be modified, but the remaining days, the education will be digital. In that way, the classes, the proceedings of the class, the teachings will be either telecast or something like that. There will be partly personal, the real education, and partly virtual. There will be some, but I'm hopeful that this virus is will be going on the web after 1, 2, 3 years. After that, we can hope that the normalcy will be situated, but the memory will be there. We couldn't forget the nuclear holocaust, just like that.
Where from the suggestion come? How do you know that what should be the proportion of blending learning? How much it should be digital, and again, how much it should be interactive or face-to-face? The suggestions
that will have to be worked out. That will have to be worked out in individual situations. That may not be the same in all institutions, according to the number of students, the number of the type of student, subject. That will be variable.
Do you think that this type of
this is my idea. I don't know what is going to be, and let the education is settled.
Yes, a kind of heterogeneity may lead to confusion again. This is one. We are very anxious over this type of heterogeneity. Is there any prescription that this much should be digital, or what should be the, where is the guideline, proper guideline? How can, where to go to conduct such
The
educational
guideline will be formed by people like you. The educationists will sit together, will frame a guideline.
Yes. But the science and medical expertise, that is not there with us always.
It is with you, sir.
Yes,
It is with you. Just consider them. They are sitting just beside you, and you're not worried.
we have to sort it out.
Yeah.
But with your help only.
You will get help from every level. There's no, don't worry for that.
Dr.
I can
Prosh,
give
would you
some
like to enlighten?
examples.
Yes.
Yes, I can give some examples which are happening in Australia. So the grand rounds in our hospital, which used to happen every week in a large lecture theatre. Now we have got the option of zooming in because the lecture theatre can only accommodate now 50 individuals, which can maintain the 1.5 meter distancing, which are advised in Australia. So I think the answer lies in your classroom size and how many students can be accommodated in that classroom area, keeping the social distancing. My son has gone back to school. He's in year 9. They are using hand sanitizer before entering each classroom, and they're also been asked to clean their desks and chairs after they finish their class, which is hard work for him, but I guess that suits him right. A student from America who's visiting Australia told me that in her university, they're thinking about changing the long break from the summer, which is traditionally in the case in the UK and US, to the winter months to prevent the endemic of flu, which can make the crisis of an infection like coronavirus even worse. So all these things are happening, and I think we do not know the answers. No one can give you a prescription, unfortunately, to tell you what is going to work. It's a crisis which we have to try and figure out what is best for us. What is working in Sydney may not be applicable to a college in Birati. So I think something which will work for you has to come within you and has to be organic from the college and the staff there.
Thank you so much, everybody. I think we had really a good deal of discussion here. And now we will turn to one of the most important attractions of this webinar, the poster making competition. As I said, that we received overwhelming responses with students coming from various colleges of West Bengal. I'll just introduce you to the 4 judges, the panel of judges. We had an external judge, Ms. Prerona Chatterjee, who is an artist, an architect, an urban designer. She is pursuing her doctoral research in the University of Melbourne, Australia. We have Sri Tushar Kantri Roy, Head Department of Zoology, MDM, that is our own college, Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapith, and who is also the IQAC member. Along with this too, we have Srimati Agomoni Shaha, who is faculty, Department of Sociology, Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapith, and Srimati Shohini Ghosh, faculty, Department of English, again from our own college. Thank you, judges, because I know you actually had a very tough time in selecting and ranking the posters because they were really very good posters. So what we have decided to do is to kind of show you a slideshow of not all the posters, but those posters which the judges thought would be worth showing. And there we have ranked the, made 10 ranks. So from number 10 to number 1, we'll be showing the posters. And I shall request Prerona Chatterjee, who is the external judge here, to kind of explain the criteria of judgment to all of us. So over to Prerona.
No, you're not audible, Prerona. You're not audible. No, not yet.
No, some problem arise from her end. from our end, there is some connectivity problem. Here is showing that this is absolutely fine.
Hello? Yeah, can you just say, can you speak, Prerna? No, you're not audible.
Shuman, is the problem from our end?
No, no, not for our end. Yeah.
Do you have a headphone on, Prerna?
Or mute in the computer audio. Kindly check the mute of the computer audio.
I think she has her headphone on. No, you're not audible. You see the connections are tightly, they're tight. No, not yet, dear.
Kindly check the computer laptop audio, whether it is muted or not.
Can she hear you, Suman?
Yes, definitely. I'm here.
No, she can hear, sir.
Yes, yes. Then try to guide her.
Is now she muted. Kindly unmute.
Yes.
Prerna madam, kindly unmute. Yes, unmute. No.
Please disconnect your headphone. I think disconnecting your headphone will do.
Yes.
Take it off from the
Yes.
machine.
Please check the audio, whether it is mute. Audio of the computer. From these end, absolutely fine.
Yes, I think you are. Okay, no, you're not. Yes. I think we will be able to hear you. Please speak.
Yeah, speak again.
You start
Hello?
the slideshow.
It's very faint. Faint sound is coming.
Rohini, can you start the slideshow?
Yes, I can.
Then she will find the necessary.
Yes, now, now it is showing that you have muted your audio. Now you have unmuted. No, we cannot hear you.
Yes, from our end, it is absolutely fine. But
No, she can't be heard. So should Shohini start the slideshow?
yes. This is unfortunate for us. Anyway.
But Prerna needs to give the PPT, the presentation.
So now I'm using Dr. Gangopadhyay's station.
Yes.
Now you can hear me.
Yes,
Yes,
wonderful.
yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes.
Just a second. We just switched stations.
So Shohini can also start the PTF.
No, I am starting the PPT. It's open
Okay.
right in my desktop. I'm trying to share the screen right now.
Wonderful.
So, okay. So can everybody see the screen right now?
No, we cannot. The screen is not shared.
Yeah, can everybody see the screen
Yes,
now?
yes, now can.
Yeah. Sorry for delaying for the delay.
Yes, it is coming. It is coming.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you everyone for giving me a chance to be a part of this venture. It's really exciting to go through all the very overwhelming number of entries that we had. And the overall standard of the posters, I must say, is extremely praiseworthy. But it had been very difficult for us to judge that which is better than the other. All of them are just phenomenal. But to better analyze and evaluate each of them, what we had done is that we have set a criteria for judgment, which gets the overall aesthetic and the information value of each poster. So let me just introduce the criteria. The first one is the title or the concept. That is how innovatively the theme has been approached, that what are the thoughts behind the theme. There are many ways to approach the theme. So we have actually judged on the basis of how the participant has approached the theme. The next is the relevance to the theme itself. Then the third is the most important, which is the composition. It is literally the canvas planning, that how the images have been planned on the canvas, how the text has been included, whether the text has come out discreetly or not, whether how powerfully the message has been conveyed and how innovatively it has been done. And then the presentation, which is about the neatness, the clarity, and the conspicuousness of the message, which it's not lost amidst the composition, that is. And the last is the innovation, like if anybody has used a very interesting medium or a very interesting kind of art style, the different approaches in artistic mediums, that is what we understand by. So we have seen the entries and scored them as per these criteria, which we think that the entries which we have chosen have fantastically addressed. So now we really could not select 2 or 3 best, because there are an immense number of good entries. So what we did is that we picked a number of very noteworthy ones. And the first ones which we are going to share are the ones which are really worthy of exhibition, really needs to be shared among the lovely people here. And then it's followed by a countdown from 10 to 1. And just a caution ahead that there are a huge number of ties, because it was literally very difficult to decide which was better of the other. So let's not delay further and jump into this. So to start with, yes, the first presentation which we have, the poster worthy of exhibition, is by Oishi Biswas. And the most notable here, we think, is that the personification of the earth with that corona headdress, which is really eye-catching and really the focus of this poster. And the theme has also been mentioned very boldly on the top. Then the next one is again another personification attempt of the earth as well as the coronas in the bottom, and with a very bold message of the steps to follow, which is rather an educational approach through a poster. Then we have Progya Roy, the Department of Sociology from Mrinali Datta Mahavidyapith. And it's a very cartoonist approach, and we appreciate the concept. And below is the lovely cartoon coronas chased by this precautions, which is almost drawn in the form of a Pac-Man. I don't know how many people are familiar with the game, but it almost looks like a Pac-Man. And then next is Anwesha Shaha, Department of Geography, RSMVV. And here we really appreciate the use of newspaper in the collage. And it's a very nice composition also. They're on health education. Now we jump into the countdown from 10 to 1. First one is by Sugata Brahmo from Nabobarakpur Prafulla Chandra Mahavidyalaya. We appreciate the innovative lettering, almost reminiscent of a kind of a pop art genre, and boldly sends out the message. Next, rank 9 is a tie. And the first one is by Shusrita Das of English Department of Barashat Government College. Bold use of colors, very, very 80s kind of vibe, again pop art, and really sends the message very strongly on containing the virus, we can see. Next, another tie on rank 9 is by Pooja Roy, the Department of Sociology at Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapit, and very lovely portrayal of the doctor embracing the corona, also very much educational as per health awareness, we can see as many posters have tried to do. On number 8, we have Antara Ghosh from Political Science Department, Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapit again. Very bold use of colors, again very much inspired by Andy Warhol, looks like, very pop art. And rank 7 is a huge tie between 3 people, I guess. The first one is by Shornali Das, Department of English at Dinabandhu Mahavidyalaya. Very much distilled, like very much Bauhaus-like, almost gives a notion of tessellation, which we can see. Nice use of colors, and the message, lovely way it has been conveyed. The next tie is by Dia Bagui, Sociology Department, East Calcutta Girls College at number 7. Very beautiful, neat portrayal of the doctor, very good use of colors, nice composition also, sending out the message very boldly. Then Rishika Ghosh at number 7, again we have from the Department of English at Ramakrishna Sharoda Mission, Vivekananda Vidya Bhavan. The very discreet use of images, almost like a semiotic, symbolic fashion, with bold use of colors we have here. Then number rank 6, that is rank 6, we have Riya Pal from Department of English at Dinabandhu Mahavidyalaya. It's a sepia mode, the only sepia mode presentation which we have. No colors, but immensely attractive. On number 5, we have Tamona Kormokar, Department of Sociology from Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapit again. And we have the faces of the corona fighters, almost on a kind of an avatar image. And also at the bottom, we see that the international collaboration on fighting corona is lovely, in a lovely way it is portrayed. In rank 4, we have Shujata Sarkar, Department of Sociology, again from Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapit. And it's about hope for complete recovery with a nice namaste and the international collaboration which we can see. Nice segregation of the sheet. Rank 3 is Srimoyi Ghoshal from English Department, Acharya Prafulla Chandra College. And here we see a nice polka dot kind of composition of coronas all over the sheet, which is rather very attractive. It shows a conference on Zoom at the center, which is the digital theme which was given for this poster. On rank 2, which is a tie, the first one is just phenomenal. It is by Rani Devnath, Department of English, Bongao, Dinabandhu Mahavidyalaya. And very dystopic, black and white, reminiscent of the German Expressionism, reminds us of Fritz Lang's Metropolis, those people who are aware of it. Very much dystopic. And the second one, this one is, to me, it appeared very psychedelic use of colors, like neon retro kind of thing, wild blues and pinks. And the message is very strongly portrayed once again. And here we have number 1, very, very bold, very, very bold. It's by Arnab Shah from Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapit. Very bold portrayal, very dystopic. At the same time, it shows the doctor really going up to the heart and checking out corona, and very discreetly and very clearly shown what are the different symptoms and the prevention. Very educative, at the same time very much aesthetically appealing.
So these are the very, very lovely posters which we have, and really portrays the condition which we all live in now. Truly, truth is stranger than fiction, like we are living in times right now. Thank you very much, and over to Mitali Gangopadhyay.
Thank you so much, Prerna, for judging it, and thank you, the judges, all the 4 members who have judged these. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think you all had a lovely time watching the posters. And as Prerna said, they are really, really phenomenal. We have arrived at the end of the webinar. It is quite late here also. And one second. I just hope that the webinar has been able to enrich you. It has been able to strengthen you, most importantly, so that we can grapple with this COVID-19, the coronavirus, in a far better manner in future. I shall now request Upagotha De, my dear friend and faculty Department of English, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to Upagotha.
Thank you, Mitali. Just confirming, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Mitali,
yes.
There are 3 people in attendee who raised their hands for a question. Is it possible to take their question?
Yes, I don't
So
mind.
after that,
I don't mind if the speakers agree.
Yes, let's check. That
If
is
the speakers
new.
agree.
Yes. Is it possible there are 4 person? Anyway, I can bear only 1 or 2. Or there is a 3.
Is Mr. Baker still here or has he left?
He left, I think.
Yes, I can't see him, so he might be busy with his Delhi schedule. So, are the questions directed to the 2 doctors?
I don't know. Let them speak.
Okay,
so
fine.
Okay.
Please allow them.
Okay. So I would like to allow Sampa De to proceed your questions very short. I allow her. Sampa De, can you speak? Hear me? Yes. Sampa De, yes. Kindly open your unmute your microphone. Sampa De. I think is not there.
Let us go to the next person.
Okay, go to the, yes. So next person is Jinab Khan. Let's check. Jinab Khan, are you there? Jinab Khan, are you there? Hello, kindly open your microphone. Can you hear me? I think it's not also there. So that's fine. We have given the chance to speak the attendees, but there is no. Okay, fine. Let's.
Thank you, Shumon. We will now go to the vote of thanks by Upagotha De, Department of English, Over to you, Upagotha.
Thank you. A very, very warm and a late evening from this part of the globe. We have reached the fag end of the international webinar, Impact of COVID-19 on Health and Education Going Digital. As by now all of you know that this has been organized jointly by departments of English and Sociology, supported by our Internal Quality Assurance Cell, IQAC, MDM, Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapith, and collaborated by Prothom West Bengal. The first person to whom I would extend my gratitude is a woman we look up to, our GB President, Srimati Chandrima Bhattacharya. Thank you, Didi, for being with us through thick and thin. Now, whenever I am on a podium, whether it is physically or digitally, a very cliched figure of speech comes to my mind when I'm thinking about this person. It is the father figure, within quotes, of our institution, our principal, Sir Dr. Apurva Bandyopadhyay.
Now, be it a student's presentation within the four walls of our classroom or our auditorium, our very favorite auditorium where MDM keeps on staging national and international conferences, or here as we are going digital for the first time, Sir has always enlightened us with his presence, with his support, and with his knowledge. Thank you so much, sir. Coming to the speakers, firstly, thank you to Dr. Rukmini Banerjee, CEO, Pratham Education Foundation. It was a pleasure hearing you, ma'am. We also look for a change from the 2020 class as you told us in your speech. Thank you to Mr. Ronojit Bhattacharya, General Manager, Asar Center, New Delhi. Thank you to Mr. Shojul Ghosh, Senior Asar Associate, West Bengal. Asar is the Center Research Wing of Pratham Education Foundation, our collaborator. Thanks to all of you for extending your collaboration. Our second speaker, Mr. John Baker, Director of Engineering, Kaplan Test Prep, New York City. Fortunate, sir, being able to reach up to you. Here I would like to mention that a pivotal role has been played by Pooja Chatterjee. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you so much, Mr. Baker, for enlightening us with your valuable words, the problem which the entire world is facing regarding job loss, regarding school, and regarding also the individual companies. Now, the next speaker, I turn a bit nostalgic when I go to talk about him. It's Dr. Proshun Dotto, Fellowship Trainee in Addiction Medicine, Nepean Hospital, Sydney. Proshun, Mitali and me, we have been friends since 1995, 96. I have seen Proshun embarking on his medical career when he got admitted to the NRS College, Kolkata, and then he flew off to UK for his future studies, and now he is an esteemed panelist here. Proshun, it's really immensely, it gives me immense pleasure and pride. I feel so happy to have you here, and seeing you after so many days is indeed also a pleasure. Our next speaker, Dr. Pinaki Banerjee, MD Intensivist, retired Professor of Medicine. What do I say about you, sir? It has been such an enlightening talk. We were seeing the chat box and people from all around were constantly acknowledging you, appreciating you, accolading you, that you had been such a wonderful speaker. We learned loads from you. Adding a very personal note, sir, in a very, very closed group in our college, we know you as Bapu. So I would like to address you as Meshumoshai, my very favorite address. Thank you, Meshumoshai, for being there. Thank you so much. Now, all of you know by now that we have also organized a poster making competition. Beautiful posters, as you all have seen just now. Thanks to the special juries, Prerana Chatterjee needs no introduction.
My pleasure.
The way she has explained everything is proof enough of what she is capable of. Whenever I see her compositions, be it on the social media or physically, I marvel at her excellence. She is beyond any comparisons. My heartfelt thanks to Tushar Kanti Roy, Departmental Head, Zoology, who is incidentally also our IQSC member, and Srimoti Agumoni Shaha, Faculty, Department of Sociology, Srimoti Shohini Ghosh, Faculty, Department of English, for being such wonderful judges. I know actually it was a difficult task. Thank you so much. Heartfelt thanks to all the IQSC members of my college. You had indeed been an inspiration. Thank you, all of you. Now, both the conveners of these webinars, of this particular webinar, both my conveners, the Departmental Head of Sociology, Onuja Gupta, Departmental Head of English, Dr. Mitali Gangobadhyay, who incidentally also happens to be the IQSC coordinator. What do I say about the two of them? You know, a bud, when it ultimately blossoms to a full flower, it goes through various stages. So conceiving, arranging, executing, everything has been done by them. I can talk hours on both of them, but I would restrict myself. Thank you, Anuja and Mitali. Now comes the technical support. Now, believe me, we have been racking these two people since the last 7 days. We have called them up midnight. We have woken them up from their early sleep. We have eaten their heads out because we were actually technically challenged, and we wouldn't have been able to make this possible without the help of Dr. Shuman Chakraborty, HOD, Head of the Department Anthropology, who incidentally is also our IQSC member, and Shumit Bakchi, Faculty Computer Science. Shuman at each step has told us, go ahead, I'm with you. Go ahead, I'm with you. Thank you so much, Shuman and Shumit, for being there. Faculties of both the department, Sociology and English, Agomoni, Srimoyi, Shushma, and obviously Anuja, and my own department, my home, Mitali, Shohini, Omlan, and Devanjan. A very small note, I would be doing, I don't know, wrong, I'll be doing wrong to the entire department if I singly do not take Devanjan's name. He has actually shouldered a tremendous responsibility. We have kept on thwarting things on him, and he has done everything with a smiling face. Thank you, Devanjan. Research scholars, academicians, teachers, students who have registered in numbers, we actually had to stop registration prior to 2 days. They poured in such a number. Thanks to all of you. Now coming again to a very, very personal area, my college teachers, MDM teachers. Now, the moment the flyer was on the MDM official WhatsApp site, immediately teachers started registering. I feel very tempted to take personal names, but I will not. You all understand. I have teachers who have personally messaged me telling best of luck. So all of you, my heartfelt thanks to all of you for being there. You might not be present on the screen, but you are in our hearts. Thank you so much. Thank you to our non-teaching staff. They have been a constant support. Thanks to the Students' Union, who are more of a friends to us now than students, and quote unquote, people I tell them to be my spiritual backdrop. The reason I'm here, my students. Students of both the department, Sociology and English, and students of my entire college. Now, hope all of you are carrying back home something very valuable from this webinar. Our attempt has not gone down the drains, as we can understand from the response. A pandemic can never pin us down, never. So education will keep on enumerating light through all crises, all the crises. This has been a first attempt on our part to go digital. We might be wrong somewhere. We might have made some mistakes. Do bear with us. We all are looking up. We are all waiting to awaken to a healed world. We wait for that. Two important informations I would like to share. Kindly fill in the feedback form and submit it within the 23rd June. An e-certificate will be reaching you within the 27th of June. Do not leave the platform, please. Please do stay online so that we can have a group photograph.